Hello, welcome to the Sound of Science, the place where we deconstruct unscientific bogus and silly scams. Let's go get them. Hello there, and thanks for watching. Today we're going to watch a video from the YouTube channel called Atheist Elephant, hosted by a guy called Rylan. And Rylan is a Mormon boy. Take it away, Rylan.
Hard atheism runs into some massive challenges that don't go away just by ignoring them. In this video, I will share 3 big challenges for a purely naturalistic view of the world that don't get talked about enough.
Hard atheism, soft atheism, general atheism, none of it runs into any challenges, as long as you don't prove that your God exists. Just like non-vampirists do not run into any challenges, as long as you don't prove that Dracula exists. It's as simple as that.
I'm a Latter-day Saint creator, and on this channel we analyze things from an LDS perspective.
So, you're a Mormon boy. I don't care what kind of Christian apologist you are. All I'm looking for is the one Christian apologist who doesn't speak nonsense. I've been searching for 30 years now. Are you going to be the one? I don't think so.
Let's set the stage. By hard atheism, I mean Gnostic atheism, the assertion that there is no God. Many such atheists adopt naturalism, the view that reality is entirely natural and has no supernatural aspects.
Which, of course, is the default position. Things we can prove to exist by some kind of observation, measurement, or detection are called reality. Things we cannot prove to exist are called imagination. If you think that some kind of supernatural thing exists, then just prove it.
Now, this does not mean that things we have not observed do not exist.
Which is a pretty pointless statement. Indeed, we haven't observed gods, unicorns, and vampires. And that doesn't mean that they don't exist. But the list of imaginary characters that we have not observed is endless. So why waste an argument on it?
Naturalists argue that reality is best explained in natural terms. They argue that God is not needed to explain observed phenomena.
Which is completely true. There is nothing in this world that can be explained by a never observed, never measured, never detected, never proven being. Instead, things we can actually prove to exist offer much better explanations for the phenomena around us. The concept of a God explains nothing. All it is an unsubstantiated claim that is not supported by any meaningful evidence.
So let's get into these 3 big problems. Number 1. While the theory of evolution aims to explain how organisms change over time, it does not address how life originated in the first place.
So why even mention it if the theory of evolution is not meant to explain the origin of life? It seems totally pointless to mention it if it has got nothing to do with the point you're going to make.
Under the hard atheist perspective, any explanation for the origin of life is difficult to justify.
No, not at all. Biochemists have developed very detailed and plausible models for the origin of life that are completely centered around known and real chemical processes that we know to exist and that we can partly test and replicate. The ones who are having a problem are the people who want to explain the origin of life by means of a magic being who speaks life into existence. That's the actual problem, and it doesn't sit in the atheist corner.
Many rely on abiogenesis, the idea that life arose from non-life. The reasoning is simple. Life had to begin somehow. If no God exists, it must have emerged naturally. However, we have never observed life emerging from non-life.
How is that a problem for you? You have never observed a God speaking life into existence, so even to you, your own argument must be nonsensical.
Scientists have made progress in showing how some building blocks of life can form naturally, like amino acids and RNA-like molecules. But we are yet to demonstrate a complete pathway from simple chemistry to a self-replicating cell. Even after decades of research, we still have no demonstrated natural processes that can take non-living chemicals all the way to a functioning, self-replicating life.
So, after a few decades of research, science has made significant progress in origin of life research. There is an actual scientific theory, and based upon that theory, more and more building blocks of life are created in labs all over the world. But now look at Christianity. Even after 2,000 years of God claims, you Christians still haven't produced one single picture, sound clip, video, or measurement result of your God speaking life into existence. You have no theory that explains how he could have done that. There is no evidence to support that it happened in the first place. You've got nothing. So even according to your own video, abiogenesis is way ahead of Christianity when it comes to explaining the origin of life.
So if you're certain that natural processes alone explain everything, you're betting on the massive step from non-life to life that we just haven't figured out yet.
But if you're betting on your God speaking life into existence, you've got nothing. You haven't even demonstrated the existence of your God. So who is having a problem here? Not atheism, not naturalism.
For this reason, abiogenesis and other natural explanations for the origin of life remain extremely difficult to accept.
What? What an extremely bad argument. You present abiogenesis and your God speaking life into existence as two competing explanations for the origin of life. You admit that abiogenesis has a scientific theory and is making progress in creating the building blocks of life. And in favor of your own side, the God thing, you present nothing. So this first round is a clear win for science, atheism, and naturalism, and a clear loss for your God idea.
Number 2. Many atheists admit that morality is subjective.
Which is exactly true. Morality is subjective. There is no moralometer that can observe, detect, and measure morality in an objective and independent way, giving us consistent readings all the time. No, everyone has their own opinion about what is good and what is bad. So, yes, that's the definition of subjective.
Right and wrong are treated as matters of opinion, like preferring one color over another. You might like red, but I like blue is comparable to you might hate murder, but I love it.
It's always funny when Christians use that specific example in an attempt to discredit the idea that morality is subjective, since they are worshipping a God who, if he were to exist, very clearly likes murder. Right at the start of the Bible book, the Christian God spreads the main message of the Christian religion, and that is, obey me, or I will drown all of you in a planned and systematic manner. Elderly people, women, children, babies, I don't care. All of them will die if you don't obey me. And the thing is, an all-knowing and all-powerful God could have chosen to create a world in which he would not murder all of humanity. Yet the Christian God freely chose to create that version of the world. So murdering humanity was the Christian God's own preference.
However, some atheists do actually argue for objective morality. They appeal to a higher moral law or greater good, which, can't we just call that God?
I think you're making that up, so maybe in your next video give some examples of atheists who have suggested this idea. But even if there are atheists who have such an idea about morality, then that has got nothing to do with atheism. Atheism only is not believing that a God exists. Morality is not part of some atheistic doctrine or something. So your whole point is kind of irrelevant to atheism.
Under atheism, without life after death, ultimate consequences do not exist.
That is not an atheism thing. If your God doesn't exist, then there are also no ultimate consequences under Christianity. You can make them up. You can have your pastor in your church telling about, ultimate consequences of our behavior. But as long as your God doesn't exist, his ultimate consequences also don't exist. You believing in such things and I not believing in such things is not going to change that. So that's not an atheism thing.
If a person commits atrocities and dies without punishment or is never caught, morality has no final effect for them. In that sense, morality may exist, but it may never ultimately matter.
Which is irrelevant as long as you don't prove that there is such a thing as an afterlife. As long as you don't prove an afterlife, ultimate consequences in the afterlife are just imaginary, so completely irrelevant. I know to many Christians this is a bit of a disappointment, but you can't believe things into existence.
These questions make morality under atheism deeply challenging. If you believe some acts, like genocide or murder, are objectively always wrong, accepting atheism becomes difficult.
How dare you? Your own God commits genocide. In the Genesis chapter of your Bible book, even according to your own holy book, he's a mass murderer. If you think genocide is bad, and I surely hope you do, you should stop worshipping your God, or at least reject all the horrible murdering that he incites and commits.
Reason number 3.
Wait, that was it? That supposedly was problem number 2 for atheism? Morality? While, even according to your own holy book, your God threatens and murders millions of people left and right, including babies and children. And I, as an atheist, now have a problem because I don't believe in that God? That's insane. Again, it's a clear win for atheism. I really hope that your third point is a bit better and that you gave it a bit more thought, but I won't hold my breath.
Reason number 3.
Oh no, not the fine-tuning nonsense again. Don't tell me that even you, as part of the younger generation of Christian apologists, have not studied the many refutations of this fine-tuning bogus. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube demolishing this nonsensical idea of fine-tuning. Don't tell me you did not study those objections, or worse, you're ignoring them, maybe?
Hard atheist naturalists face challenges explaining the fine-tuning of the universe. Several fundamental constants are precisely set.
No, they are not precisely set. That is your claim. Those fundamental constants are. They exist. But stating that they are set is a God claim, without there being proof that your God exists. So no, saying that those constants are set is nonsense.
If they were even slightly different, life as we know it would be impossible.
Which is totally irrelevant as long as you don't prove that these fundamental constants can change in the first place. We only have one universe in which we have never seen or observed a change in these physical constants. That is why we call them constants. Your argument, the fine-tuning rubbish, is built upon the imaginary idea that these constants are not constants, but variables that can change. But you have zero evidence to back up that idea, so it's totally irrelevant.
For example, if the strength of gravity or the cosmological constant were just slightly different, stars, planets, and life as we know it couldn't exist.
Oh, come on. Do you Christian apologists ever learn anything? Do you people ever take any time to study the arguments of the people who criticize your ideas? I guess you don't. Why else would you continue to repeat the nonsense that has been debunked over and over again, even here on YouTube, the platform that you are part of?
Believers in God often use this as a probabilistic argument for a divine fine-tuner. Atheists must propose alternative explanations.
No, we don't have to propose anything. Your fine-tuning argument is totally meaningless. It is built upon the imaginary idea that physical constants can change. First, prove that that is possible, and then we have to deal with the other huge issues that the fine-tuning argument has, because this is only the beginning. How can you not know that?
Some suggest it happened by chance. The probability of all constants aligning to support life is extremely low. Pure chance means accepting odds so tiny that in any other context, we'd call it practically impossible.
No, you cucumber fudge for brains. You have no clue about those odds. You can't calculate them because you don't know if the physical constants could have had any other value. And even if they could, then chance would offer an excellent explanation, because every individual combination of values of physical constants would have had the exact same odds. All these trillions upon trillions of possible outcomes would have had the same odds, and a universe with life is just one of those outcomes. So that's exactly according to chance. If you find 10 dice and the outcome is 42251, 61323, then chances were 1 in 60 million to get that exact outcome. Yet here we are, 42251, 61323. And despite the odds of this outcome only being 1 in 60 million, this outcome is exactly according to chance and doesn't require any explanation. And it's exactly the same with the outcome of the values of the physical constants of the universe. It doesn't need an explanation.
Others propose a multiverse. Now, in this view, countless universes exist with varying constants. Life-permitting universes would then be likely, given that a countable infinite number of universes would eliminate the probability problem. However, the multiverse theory remains a theory, not an established fact.
A god is not even a theory, it's just an imaginary idea. And I don't need a multiverse to reject your fine-tuning nonsense. Just first prove that physical constants of the universe could have had any other value. If you can prove that, then we can have a debate about the argument.
All scientific theories are not fact. That's why we call them theories.
Oh boy. This is where you totally disqualify yourself as a serious partner in any conversation about science. A theory is not a fact, that's why we call it a theory. Man, come on. This is explained 1,000 times on YouTube alone. Have you ever looked up what that is? A scientific theory? You really should do that first before making another video in which you make a fool of yourself again.
Others arguing against the fine-tuning of the universe will argue that the constants could not have been otherwise.
No, that's not what we do, and we don't have to do that. Do you have any idea what the burden of proof means? You propose the fine-tuning argument. That argument is built upon the assumption that the physical constants of the universe are variables and can change. Without that, the fine-tuning argument does not exist. So we don't have to propose that the physical constants cannot change. It's your job to prove that they can.
But this only shifts the question to why the conditions for those constants are necessary. Essentially, this just moves the problem back one step.
No, again, that's a very bad argument. We can always ask a sensible or nonsensical why question about anything. But that will never change what is true or what is not true. Even if you prove you're God, I can ask you, why does your God exist? That has no consequences for what is true and what is not true. So again, a totally irrelevant statement for the topic that we're discussing.
No matter the approach, accounting for fine-tuning without God remains a challenge.
No, you haven't proven that your God exists. And as long as you don't do that, accounting for reality with a God, that's the real problem.
Now, every worldview has challenges.
But worldviews that imagine a God who speaks planets into existence without there being any evidence to prove that such things exist, those are the worldviews that are most problematic.
One unique challenge that we as Latter-day Saints face is online misrepresentation. We have many ex-members who confidently say things about us that are just not true. In the next video, we'll learn why you should be cautious of anti-Mormon influencers.
Well, what do they say about you? That you have exotically bad arguments? That you have no clue about science and scientific theories? That you don't understand the burden of proof? That you imagine the existence of a God who speaks planets into existence? That you worship this God, despite him drowning 1 million babies and children? If you think you have a problematic reputation, then first work on all these problems, instead of uploading these videos that only make things worse. Wow, I've no idea if this guy is a typical Mormon, but geez, what a mess. Thanks for watching.